What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another Retro UU video, or I don't know. I'm messing up the intro to this stream, but we've got a Warrior Locals today. I figured I'd get it started by actually starting in a Warrior game while we wait for the last couple people to sign up. So yeah, it'll be fun. So this will be the last call for signups. I'm probably just gonna play the first game out and then see what happens. But let's do. Yeah, let's do that. I could have also done pre-mat for them just because it's funny, but no, that's fine. Uh, but yeah, so we'll be starting this off very soon. I'm just going to change the tournament settings here to have it be unranked because we generally have these unranked. And then we'll get going. But yeah, this should maybe be the end of the game. We'll see what happens here. I was holding this fiber for a very long time. But yeah, Fiber Jar is in Warrior format. One of the big differences between Warrior and Goat. And yeah, so it can lead to some interesting scenarios there. I can't quite win. I don't have enough if I had enough to set to make the Blade Knight 2000, then yeah, it would have been good. But unfortunately here, I will just have to settle for a bit less. I think since I can't kill, I'm just gonna go for Dawn, hit in. I think that makes sense. And let's just pick that one. Doesn't really matter. Yeah, get it out of here. And I'm just going to set this pass. So we'll see what happens here. But we are going to be having a tournament squish. Don't worry. Yeah. Is Sangam banned? I didn't realize that. I forgot about Sangam being banned. But either way, this should be fine. I think we're in a very good spot. If they commit something, we've got Snatch. If they don't, we just attack in, which I will indeed do here. I'm just going to hit in with the Dawn, see if that goes through. It does not go through, but that's still fine. Yeah. So main two, I'm just going to, I think, set one some Blade Knight. So yeah, after this first game wraps up, we're gonna be starting the locals. Okay. But yeah, this gives people time to show up, I guess. So sorry for delaying this if it does actually go for a long time. That's my bad. I guess I could potentially go for game here. Yeah, let's try it. I should have dusted last turn, but either way, here it should be fine. Okay, they're going for break. Target that. That's fine. And I lose the dust. But yeah, it should be all good. Bang, bang. And yeah, I'm going to. Yeah. But yeah, we're just speed running the end of this game to get there. When next monthly is going to be starting in 2 weeks. So it'll be starting not this upcoming weekend, but the next weekend. So yeah, it should be good. Well, I'm just gonna go for an MST. Hope I hit something good. It's a jar. That's probably the worst outcome. But let's see if this is a Saku or not. It is indeed Raigeki Break. Okay, so that does indeed clear it. And I'm just going to pass. I mean, I could set. Maybe I should have set in case it's Dawn off the top. Looks like it's not Dawn off the top, though. I'm just going to bluff set Eprov and pass. Eprov is so bad in this format. But yeah, next format will be Frog. That will be the next monthly. So going a bit ahead in the 5Ds era. But I probably should have just set both. I was too worried about like MST or something like that, but Heavy's gone, so I don't need to worry about that. Very strange game of Warrior. I feel like I am very likely to win, but we shall see. Let's go Rhoda, see if that's fine. It is fine. Honestly, I'm going to get Mystic Swordsman because I've got double knock. Yeah. Sorry, I expected this to end quickly, so okay, this is fine. Warrior Lady. Knock. Yeah, okay. Cool. Let's get this party started. There we go. GG Prada. That was a very, very good one. It took a bit longer than I expected, so but we're into it. We're starting it. We're starting the locals. Let's refresh here. So we do have 8 people exactly. And it's Prada versus Mystic Chef, GMYFS versus PJ, Wagman versus Jim Bob, and Dump Truck versus Clemens. So, yeah. Run for Red said VSOX could be pretty local. Yeah, opinion on Warrior format. I really like Warrior format a lot. I think it is sort of like an alternate version of GOAT in a good way. It's not something that can necessarily or will necessarily replace GOAT. Not that it should or that we need something to replace GOAT. It's just sort of an alternate take on GOAT that is different enough to be refreshing, right? Seems like Chaos Turbo is not the best deck in Warrior format. There's not really consensus on what is the exact best deck in Warrior format, but the fact that there's still exploration to be done there to find that best deck makes it very fun. So I like this format a lot. There is Scientist FTK being legal in this format, and that is something that has turned people away from the format because we've had a lot of very small tournaments, and there are people who do bring Scientist FTK. If you have a small tournament and Scientist FTK being a deck in that tournament, you're more likely to face that deck, and that deck is very annoying to face. But I don't think that deck is even a tier 1 deck. I think it's like, at best, it would be tier 2. So, yeah, I don't think it's really something to be as frightened of as I think a lot of people are. But it's sort of like a vicious cycle where if that deck is in tournaments and represented and, you know, it scares people away, then the tournaments will be smaller, and then so it'll be kind of rough. Yeah, I feel like that Elusive Mirror, where they say it's pretty comparable to Reasoning Gate and Stydex and GOAT. I feel like it is sort of like that. It can pop off occasionally. It has had some success in events, but it's something that I'm not necessarily sure will be, you know, a meta-defining threat, right? And I think it's actually worse than Reasoning Gate and Stydex in GOAT because those decks do require more levels of decision-making to actually win the game. So even if you lose to those decks, a lot of the time it's like, okay, well, you had to make some decisions there that wound up, you know, winning the game. Science FTK, there are decisions to be made, but a lot of the times it's just like, if you get like a certain 3 cards, right, then you win. And so like, if you do that, it doesn't really have much skill expression there, right? There can be skill expression. Again, don't get me wrong, because the Science FTK players will get upset at me if I say there's no skill expression. And I do think there is some, right? There are some weird hands where you have to decide, okay, what resources am I keeping? What resources am I like reloading back into the deck to try and maximize my chances of actually getting combo? But I think a lot of the skill with that deck is done in the deck building phase, which, you know, I don't think it's like necessarily the best deck in the world there, but it seems like Dump Truck on Burn. Burn actually is a pretty good deck in this format. I don't think it's necessarily better than in GOAT format, but it's a deck that, you know, people have had success with in the past. So, but I feel like if you're used to dealing with that in GOAT, it's the same sort of thing here. Yeah, I will say Fiber Jar helps Burn a bit because Fiber Jar resets everything but the life points. So if Burn decks sort of output all their resources just burning down the opponent and then they reset the whole entire game, then that can be a bit tough. But I think Fiber Jar is something that like every deck has to play around, right? Ooh, very good Tsukiyomi play, flipping down that Night Assailant, flipping it back up, and then you know, hitting the Lily, which you can do because there are some weird battle position rules in this format that are kind of tricky. But the general rule of thumb is if there is an effect that changes the battle position of a monster that turn, you then can't manually change it later in the turn. So for instance, if that Night Assailant had been in attack position, Tsukiyomi came down, flip it into face down defense position, Clemens could not then flip summon that Night Assailant. But because the Night Assailant was in defense, you can actually do this where you can flip it down and then flip it up because you're manually changing the battle position and the battle position had not been changed up to that point. Very weird rulings. It affects GOAT control a bit because, you know, it's a bit less powerful to do the Souk Loop because your 1,000 restrict has to be in defense to, you know, be able to flip summon it again, suck something else up. So it adds a bit of extra steps to that. That being said, GOAT Control is a deck that a lot of people seem to be doing well with and having success with. So it's clearly not enough to like put a major nail in the coffin for that deck. But yeah, I think the big thing here is that Chaos Turbo is a bit less powerful than it is in GOAT, and so other decks do get the chance to shine. And there are a couple reasons for that. There's no Graceful Charity, which is a big thing in, you know, GOAT, or not GOAT, Chaos Turbo. in GOAT. So yeah, Konami said so goes crazy. It really does. Yeah, some of these rulings is just like crazy. Like how? Like why? Like what's going on there? Um, but like luckily they switched it for GOAT. But like yeah, I think the level limit will switch the Tsukiyomi to defense because it's just like it's a constant effect, right? So like basically, if you're summoning into level in area B, it'll switch to defense before it doesn't go like on a chain, so you can't chain Raigeki Break to it. But yeah, just kind of a rough thing for Clemens there. CS says the Perfect Circle monthly 5 top 4 is Burn, Demise, Hero Fusion, Six Sam, and then the top 8 includes Burn, Perfect Circle, Monarch, and Gladiator Beast. So a cool array of decks there for Perfect Circle. I think Perfect Circle is also a cool format. Another format that probably deserves more players than it actually gets. I think people would enjoy. But just like with Warrior format, like I'm talking about the meta for Warrior where it's like, oh, Go Control's better, in this format, Chaos Turbo's worse and all that stuff. But you got to understand that like GOAT format has been labbed out by a lot of people for a long time. So when they figured out how to do Chaos Turbo, like they figured out that it was a good deck, with a lot of trial and error, a lot of, tests and a lot of rep that show that it's the best deck. In formats like Warrior and formats like Perfect Circle Monarch, if you have smaller events, less people playing, it makes it a bit tougher to really nail down the metagame as distinctly. And I would love to see more people play it to the point where we actually get to see how that metagame evolves, but we'll have to see how that goes. Squish asks, when are we finishing up 5Ds, do I think? I honestly could not tell you, unfortunately. This is largely just because I'm very busy, because I'm doing a full-time job. I'm also in grad school. So it leaves less time for videos. Like I didn't make a video at all this past week. And I feel bad about that because I really do want to be like making videos to, continue into Lightsworn format. Lightsworn format, I'll probably cut short, just like I did with Cat format. But I mean, the nice thing is that 5Ds actually, like, if I have any time to be like busy enough that I can't really fully cover the formats as much as I want to, I think 5Ds is probably the best time for that. Because if you look at the formats so far, Teledad basically tier 0 format, so there aren't really many decks to cover, right? Because Teledad's the main one. Cat format, very sacky format. I was able to cover the decks that I wanted to cover for that format, and there could probably be a couple more, but like at the end of the day, a format like that is not going to be that popular because it's just very, very sacky. And also, a lot of the decks are going to be doing relatively similar things where it's just like if a deck can go into Dark Strike Fighter and just kill the opponent, that's probably one of the better decks. And that's probably going to do it. So there's not too much to cover in Cat. Lightsworn format is the format that I'm on now. Lightsworn format very similar to Edison format. So it's like, I could just, I will say it for Edison format, I'm just going to collaborate with people. So I could just treat Lightsworn format as my take on Edison format and be like, oh, I'm showing off all the decks that are in Edison format that I'm not going to cover explicitly in Edison format because I'm going to be collaborating with people. But realistically, if I don't cover some decks in Lightsworn and people are like, oh, what's this deck like in Lightsworn format? I'll be like, well, it's basically like the deck in Edison format. You can add in some Charge of Light Brigade if you want, things like that. So Lightsworn format also not like critical to be like, okay, let's explore all the various decks in it. After Edison format, you get Frog format, which will be this monthly, which I am like 2 formats behind, or I guess not 2. I'm 1 format behind because Edison format is kind of a weird middle ground that will just be collaborations. But Frog format is not going to have the most interest for a lot of people because that is an FTK format. Like the best deck that we know of, like, and this could change with experimentation. Maybe the deck isn't as consistent as we think, but Frog FTK is very good, partially because even if it doesn't get the FTK pieces, it can just set up a really good board and still win over the course of a couple turns. So part of the skill in that deck is knowing when to pivot from the FTK into, like, just, oh, I need to actually play this game out, but you're likely still going to win. So it makes it a bit, bit of a not fun format for a lot of people. So that one's also going to be, not the most mission critical to cover. I believe, thinking about what's next, I think it's Samurai formats next. I could be wrong. I don't even think that format's on FL anymore, Format Library. But that format is also just a tier 0 format. I think there are some good formats near the end that I will want to be devoting more time to, but it is tough. Yeah, and as Squish says, you can just side into a control deck as well. You don't need to keep in the FDK tools. So people bring in like Hanawata and stuff to counter you, and you're like, well, I'm not doing the burn stuff. So it doesn't even matter anymore. Ring of Destruction on the Giant Rat, but Secret Barrel is going to be brutal here. That's a lot of damage getting taken by Clemens here. But, Dump Truck is going down to a similar amount of life points, and Clemens does have a little bit more resources, even though their board is clogged. So I think this is still a decent situation for Clemens. But, yeah, it's just, I will say I got lucky with the timing for this. Even if it's unfortunate right now that I'm not making as many videos as I'd like to be, and I don't have as much time for Yu-Gi-Oh! As I'd like to have, I will say, if this happened in the Zexal era, this would be a lot worse, because I feel like Zexal is an era where, like, you start getting formats that are actually noticeably different from each other and have actually very unique strategies that arise over the course of the era. So there's a lot going on in Zexal. I'm also less familiar with Zexal myself. Mystic Walk here is going to be pretty good. Attributing a token to gain 1,000. So that both decreases the damage you're taking from the Panda and also, clears a token from your field. But yeah, and also same with GX. I feel like GX actually has a fair amount of like differing formats, despite having a bunch of pack filler throughout a lot of it. I will say the exception is Stein. So if this has happened like when I was covering Stein, that would also be fine. The Stein formats are like kind of rough and very similar. But yeah, out of all the times this could have happened, 5D is probably the best time. But I will try and make more videos as they come, because my current term is almost over. I say almost. It's still like it's ending like this month. So, then I'll have a bit of a breather between my next term, and hopefully I'll be able to make some videos then to really, get the coverage going forward. But yeah, this is a very interesting game state. I think Clemens is maybe favored here. With Scientist, that might be very favored here. That's tricky. Restrict, yeah. I mean, I guess you have to go to Restrict to clear it, but it just sort of, it's unfortunate because you're just basically paying 1,000 life points and leaving yourself very vulnerable with a weak monster on board. So, Squish says, in my opinion, late 5Ds is just worse Tengu, because once Tengu came out, Plant Synchro became the best thing to be doing. I feel like it's interesting. Yeah, especially if Agent is legal. I was just about to bring up Agent, because I was going to say, I think in Tengu, actually, people view Agent as the best deck now. But yeah, before Agent, I mean, Synchro Plant was very, very good. I think there are some interesting differences, and I'll be curious to see if, like with Warrior format, if some of the formats before Tengu actually do feel like, distinct enough to be like, okay, this is a nice change of pace from Tengu, or if they're just Tengu light or Tengu heavy. Like, I feel like calling Lightsworn Edison light is kind of weird, because Lightsworn is like sackier than Edison at the end of the day. But yeah, exiled on the Spy, so getting rid of that aggressive pressure there. And they draw 2. Yeah, they drew 2 off Mirage, so 2 will get pitched. Dust Tornado, good to get that out. No back row. Forceful probably would have been helpful here just to know what Dump Truck had, but Clemens in a very risky spot, and they choose to set a card. So that's a bit awkward. It means they might not have much good stuff to do here. Yeah, so they get to draw 3. They're trying to dig deeper for something, but I think that Dump Truck is actually probably in the driver's seat now. Yeah, they're going to bring out that Mystic Sword in level 2, which I think we did know about. But yeah, there's the Saku to stop it, so we'll deal with it there. Yeah, more flavors of Tengu Plant for Trish. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that does change. Like, if we think about how the exploration for Goat format went, right, it started out as just different flavors of Goat control, and then Chaos Turbo became, like, a big thing. And so maybe that will change. But I think also important to note is that, like, when you have a format adjacent to another format, like Trish is to Tengu Plant, you can often graft some of the innovations from Tengu Plant onto Trish in this example. So like if people are working around with scrap decks, if there isn't anything like unique in Tengu for scraps that Trishula does not have, then maybe try out scrap in Trish, or like Falcon Punch or something like that. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Synchro Plant is just like the best thing in Trish format. But I will also not be surprised if it isn't. So I know I'm sounding very wishy-washy here, and I apologize if I'm not like making many firm statements, but yeah, that was probably, well, I don't know. Dumpster could have drawn into stuff there to win. Like one Just Desserts is basically GG if Clemens commits another monster, which they probably would. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like maybe there was something there that could have happened. Anyways, let's dive into PJ versus GMYFS. There's another game going on. And PJ's got the Ojama King there blocking off those zones. So it seems like that was a meta play. So one of the cool things you can do in this format is Scientist into a level 6 into meta to then get out a like permanent fusion monster, which is kind of cool. Yeah, I like Scientist a lot. I know that Scientist contributes to the Scientist of TK, which again, it's annoying that that's present in this format. But again, I don't think it's necessarily the best thing you could be doing in this format. And I actually don't think it's like, I mean, it's not a bad thing, right? If you're willing to give yourself over to the RNG gods. But like, I think if you're looking for skill expression in a deck, there are a lot better decks that can, you know, carry you harder than Scientist FTK. But I do like Scientist in the format. I think it's neat. I think it's a cool tool. Adds a lot of utility to different decks. And it's fun. Or at least I find it fun. But that's just me. Another thing I should mention is that in this format, Forceful and Comfy are both legal. So Duo is not legal. Those two are legal, which can be frustrating. But I do think that Duo is potentially more frustrating because Duo is a +1. Forceful and Comfy are not. And also having Forceful and Comfy in the format makes you less reliant on like Dust Shoot, right? Like, would you play Forceful Comfy triple Dust Shoot in a deck? Probably not. That's a lot of hand targeting, and if you've got Comfy and Forceful anyways, and you draw into a Dust Shoot, it can be kind of awkward because you don't want to drop your opponent down below, you know, the point where you can actually use Dust Shoot. So I think that having those hand rips in the format, having two of those cards there, does help mitigate the presence of Dust Shoot in the form, which is another thing I like here. Oh, Agent is legal in Trish. Interesting. But Tango is more consistent with 2 Debris and 2 Lone Fire. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But, I mean, honestly, it's interesting. I'm curious if people... I assume people have been testing Agent a lot in Trish as well, right? Because I don't see why you wouldn't. If Agent is very, very good in Tengu, you'd think, okay, well, even if Plant Synchro is really good in Trish, maybe Agent can still do stuff. The fact that Agent's not doing well means that, you know, Synchro Plant is probably better. But maybe there are other ways to play Agent that can give it more success. I don't quite know. But it would be interesting. I'd be very curious to see how that continues to develop. Yeah, it's a bad spot for PJ. That Moth is going to be annoying. Or did the Moth get used up already? Sometimes I miss what's going on the board because I'm checking chat, checking board, checking chat, checking board. So it can be kind of tough to keep track. But fact remains that Ojama King's been holding down the fort. Even if there is a offset, like it's just getting a hand rip really. Because Painful, I mean, you could get Painful and then loop a spell later. But Mirage here to draw 1. That's one of the nice things about Mirage too. I feel like Mirage is very interesting in this format. Not every deck wants to play Mirage. And if you do play Mirage, you want to have things like Raigeki Break to pop the Mirage if you need to. Because MST is limited to 1. So it makes it kind of tough to deal with. Yeah, Dekoichi attacking in to the set, hitting a Night Assailant, which will pop the Dekoichi. Yeah, so that won't be able to get souped down. I think that's a fine play. But now the Sook didn't have anything to flip down. Do you set the Sook? Do you set something else? Who knows? Yeah, if Agent only has 1 top in Trish, that's a bad sign for Agent, but not necessarily a death knell. Because, again, you know, you never know with further exploration what will happen. But yeah, I think it is important to note like what is done well up until this point, because if you're like joining a tournament, right, you're gonna want to look at the deck lists that are currently, you know, the top dogs and either play around those or play them yourself. But I am curious to see if that form will develop further because I think that it could potentially. I don't know. Looting Scapegoat there, yeah, don't want to use that as a chain because then your entire field's clogged. Change of Heart, pretty good here. Taking control of the set, flipping up a Koichi, getting a draw, so that'll also be pretty good there. and then you can attack in for 14. Change of Heart also in the format is something that people don't like necessarily, but I think it actually is fine compared to GOAT, because GOAT has triple Minecon, GOAT has triple BrainCon, and this format is neither Minecon nor BrainCon. So I think the Change of Heart is honestly fine. If you're okay with like Minecon and stuff in GOAT, I think you're probably okay with Change of Heart here. But I mean, Change of Heart is more powerful than Minecon, to be fair, but you can't play more than one of it. So, yeah. What's the representation for plant decks like Squish? Because if it's, because depending on the representation, that the amount of plant decks that top is either impressive or unimpressive. Because, like, for instance, if 80% of the tournament's playing plant, right, then it makes sense that, you know, plant synchro is going to top. But if it's more like 20%, then it is definitely a sign that, like, you know, if one plant's always topping and it's average like 20 to 25%, and that's a very good sign for plant synchro. But I mean, all this thing, again, I'm not trying to make a firm statement on the meta for this. I'm just saying that, you know, it'll be interesting to see how it develops, is what I'm saying. I'll probably do a bit of exploration on it. For Tengu Plant, it's interesting. I'm not sure what exactly I'm going to do for Tengu. Because for Goat and Edison, those were very popular formats, and they have a fair amount of content creators, so I was able to actually do, like, collaborations. For Tengu Plant, I only really know, like, one Tengu creator. So I don't know if I'm going to, like, explore the format more fully, like I do with my regular format coverage, or if I'm just going to do a collab and then just move on. So that'll be interesting. But that's also a while away, so we'll see what happens there. Oh, yep, that's going to do it. Yeah, BLS, it can just attack into the Sork, and that'll be all she wrote there. Yeah. Okay, let's see what other game we're going to jump into here. Dive into Jimbot versus Wagamuffin. Oh, the Cypher Soldier coming out, so the anti-warrior tech. Big stuff there. It looks like Dump Truck did lose to Clemens there, so Burn falling. You know, I've always said this about Burn decks, where, like, Burn definitely favored in game 1, but games 2 and 3 it can struggle if people bring in side deck cards for it. I'm not sure how much Clemens sided against Burn, or if they just adapted their playstyle. But it can definitely be tricky to, you know, win matches with Burn. So it looks like we got into the very end. Looks like Wagamuffin was able to win against the Warrior deck. Cypher Soldier, pretty strong here. Looks like Wagamuffin's also playing a Warrior deck, so it looks like the Warrior mirror there. But yeah, the winner of that is going to face Clemens. Okay, so this side of the bracket is going pretty quick. Let's see, Run for Red versus Mystic Chef. This is the last matchup that you know, we haven't seen yet. We saw a bit of Run for Red playing before the local started in that little bit of a preview session. But yeah, we'll see what they do here. So BLS coming down, banishing the Morphing Jar, and passing. Run for Red looks like they're in a pretty bad spot. They did win the first game there. So Squish is out of 14 players on the last tournament. 3 players of the 14 were on Plant Engine, and 1 won the whole event with Lightsworn Plant. Other variants were Plant Synchro Pure and Water Plant Synchro. So yeah, that is pretty impressive. Yeah. And it makes sense in a small event. Like, that would be the sort of percentage that I'd expect. But I just wanted to check because you never know. But yeah, generally when you have small events, the percentage of people playing like what is viewed as the best deck will go down. Because a lot of the people playing will be not necessarily more casual, but they'll probably be a bit more willing to try out new things, right? I feel like, I mean, and again, that can differ, right? But in my experience, I've seen, like, a lot of the times when you have smaller events, you sort of get all types of people. And that means that there will be less competitive people. Again, I'm wording this wrong because I don't want to imply that people playing the event aren't competitive, because they are, but, like, look at it this way. If you have a tournament, something like Edison, for instance, maybe it has a prize. Maybe it has like 100 people, right? There's going to be glory on the line. There's going to be an actual monetary value on the line. There's going to be, like, actual stakes for that, right? And so a fair amount of the people who show up will be gunning for that victory. And they'll be gunning for that victory in a way that they think has the highest chance of winning, and thus will be the most competitive decks, in their opinion, right? If you have a small 14-player event, like in this case, for instance, there will be people who go in with that attitude as well. But because there aren't really, cash prize involved, there aren't like stakes really that much because, while I'm not trying to say it's not impressive to win a tournament. There's a big difference between winning a like major event and winning like a much smaller 14 player tournament, right? And so you'll get people who are still very competitive, but also you'll get a fair amount of people who are less competitive as well. And they might still want to win the event, but they might be like, well, I want to win the event, but I want to try and win the event with like something spicy, So I'll experiment here, do a bit of tinkering in the off meta and see what I can come up with. So yeah, I think, and then as you add more people to events, right, a lot of the people coming are more competitive, I think, for the most part. It depends on the format too, because sometimes you get a format that like appeals to a lot of casual players a lot more, so then you get an influx of casual players, which can mess with things. But yeah, I don't know. It's tricky talking about like how the demographics of these tournaments change over time. It does kind of depend on format. But yeah, Runfred coming back from 100 life points to win the match. That's kind of wild there. Squish also mentions that one deck that hasn't been seen is the YCS winning Fish OTK. Fishborg is legal, and with 3 Trish, it could be a major meta threat in the future. Yeah, I'd be curious to experiment with that. I probably will experiment with it when I get to Trish format, because that does seem pretty cool. And I could imagine that being very good. So it looks like that game wrapped up. PJ versus GMYFS is still going on here. Is this the... Oh, no, this isn't the same game because I think PJ won the game that we popped in on. But this is the third game, it looks like. PJ in a pretty good spot. Dark Balter can stop normal spells that target it. Or just it can stop normal spells and then stop effect monster effect that's destroyed by battle. Yes. I was thinking of Ryu Sentry for a second, but yeah. Summoner of Illusions was the thing that brought that out. Very interesting. Unless Summoner Illusion brought out Reaper, which then was meted into Balter. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, hand loop for 3 I could see being nasty. If anyone figures out a deck that can just make like 3 Trish turn 1, that would be kind of brutal. Same with if anyone can figure out a deck that can just Gotham's loop someone, that'd be kind of rough. But yeah, we'll have to see if that happens. Mirage could help GMYFS get back into this, but it might not look the best here. Pre-map probably for, DD Warrior Lady, and then attacking him for 23. Could go for Breaker for a little bit more damage, but I think the DD Warrior Lady has a bit more utility here, so it makes more sense. So, discard 4 cards here. Will it be enough for GMYFS? Will they get what they need? Pitching a Wang Hu, that's pretty good. TT, Dust Shoot, and Pot. Oh, that Pot would have been nice. Change of Heart, though, going to be very good here. So this is the downside for pre-matting the Warrior Lady, is that now the Warrior Lady can clear both cards on board. Now, PJ might just have another monster here to bring out, but if they did that, they probably would have brought it out last turn. So it's not like the best situation for PJ to be in, but... Oh, Jin loops with Fishborg. I never even considered Jin. Yeah, what ritual stuff is out in that format? I know Herald is out, but is Herald that good in that format? I don't quite know. But yeah, keeping the card close to the extra deck. Pigeon a Serpent. So now Serpent is in rotation. That will help GMYFS stabilize a bit here. Setting that Serpent, keeping the 1 card in hand, so they're only drawing 3 this time. No, oh, there's a Light in a Dark Engrave, so maybe not a Chaos Monster, maybe it is a Chaos Monster, but knocking the Night Assailant. Okay, so the Serpent was in hand. That was what was kept. Banishing another Night Assailant from the deck. Night Assailant is at 3 in this format, I believe, as well, so good to keep in mind. But yeah, Serpent is hidden in. We got Serpent beats here. If it works, it works, I will say GMYFS probably happy that the Night Assailant was what got knocked instead of the Serp, because now you can just keep setting that Serp every turn and protecting your life points a bit. Losing the BLS there is pretty rough. That would have been pretty good. Looks like the hand is Thunder Dragon and Serpent, so not ideal, but it is something at least. You can set the Serpent and then just protect yourself a little bit. The issue is that Serpent can get over Serpent, so it's kind of awkward here, but yeah, and then pitching the Thunder Dragons to fail to find, so that way they, can draw more cards off Mirage. hopefully draw. Oh, MST's gone. Okay, so I don't know what they're pitching for. This could go to deck out, honestly. Oh, yeah, it's ending here, so never mind. Not going to go to deck out. Wait, why? Why are they attacking this order? That would have been a bad. You want to attack in with the SERP first and then the Kaiku because the SERP was set and that was known. Anyways, it was probably still over for GeoMyFest. So let's dive into Clemens versus Wagmuffin. The game here will be PJ versus Prada, so that'll be cool to see. Oh, Lauren is still legal in that format too. Oh, I'm excited to show off Lauren loops because I want to like try and with this sort of historical approach to the formats that I go through. I want to show off why some cards that are on the list, and Lauren is definitely one that when you first see it, you're like, why is this here? Why is this bad enough to be banned? But then you find out more, and you're like, oh, that's why, because it can be nasty. Same with like Bryanak, or like Bryanak you'd expect to be on the list because it just bounces your opponent's field, but it's actually on the list. Well, I mean, this partially on the list for that, but it's also on the list because you can bounce your own stuff and just extend your combos and do like nasty stuff. Oh, Heavy's gonna be pretty good there. This might be the end of the game. Nope, not the end of the game yet, but that does enable Clemens to clear the Dawn, pass back to Wagmuffin. And Wagmuffin does have Exiled to get rid of that breaker, but will it be enough? Clemens just need a monster they can poke in here. Looks like they're going to set one. Might be a Fiber Jar, might be a Morphing Jar. I feel like it probably would be a jar of some sort, or else you just attack in. Maybe it's Faith, though. Any spells engrave? It is Faith. Faith for Pot, probably. Either Faith for Pot or Heavy, depending on what you have in hand. Yeah, it looks like Heavy, so that means probably a monster in hand. But yeah, that will clear the set card there. Ring getting chained, maybe? Yeah, just in case there's like a tribute monster in hand. Makes sense. You're taking that 300 damage anyways, so might as well. And it looks like Clemens setting one, passing back. Interesting. I would have got Pot if I didn't have any monsters. Although maybe they had like a tribute monster that they're just going to tribute off for the Faith, so makes sense there. But I probably would have just gone Pot, personally. At this stage in the game, like, if you draw into your monsters, you just win, right? If it's Ring, then they, they're still seeing the damage from that. The only downside is like TT, but if it's TT, you can sort of play around a bit and, bide your time to play around it if you want. But Raigeki Break on the breaker, just clearing that, getting rid of a useless hand rip here. And Clemens thinking they're going to banish a light, banish a dark, and they're going to go for a BLS. Will this be enough? Wagmuffin giving the thumbs up. BLS attacking in. Saku will clear that BLS, though. And Clemens passing back. So it is a risky spot for Clemens here if Wagmuffin draws into something that can poke in and win. Very intense game for both players. They're checking their extra. Might mean that they've got a Scientist. Unfortunately, not much you can really go into off Scientist here. I'm not the hugest fan of Scientist. I mean, I like Scientist being an option for different decks. I'm not a huge fan of like every deck playing Scientist. I think in order to play Scientist, you need to be playing like specific stuff. But meta there is pretty good. Do I think Redo is on the decline right now? There hasn't been an actual big tournament in a while. I think Redo is sort of like in a spot that Hat was, where it's a format that, I mean, Hat's been around for longer, but it's a format that like got hyped up at a certain point, just in the community. And when formats have hype like that, they can just keep growing, or they just grow for a bit and then solidify around a certain base. So I think Redo is sort of like at that stage right now where it's sort of solidified around its base, and that base is still playing it, but it's not like gonna have like super, super big events like all the time, which I think is a fine spot to be. I think like that is better than most retro formats get. And even if you are in a situation like that, there is still opportunity for growth there in the future to then become bigger and bigger. So I wouldn't necessarily call it on the decline. I would just say if you map its growth and its growth was like going up, up, up like this, I would say that its growth is sort of like, the slope of it's getting a bit less, right? It's sort of like not plateauing, but it's just sort of like growing less fast, right? But that's not a bad thing. And yeah, we'll have to see if they're able to continue to support the community and keep the growth going. But I would not call it in decline, personally. Yeah. I would say that the only format I can think of, I can think of like two major formats that have actually like gone through a serious amount of decline. One is Reaper format, which got really big. Okay, bringing it to the draw there. So yeah, game one being a draw, very fun stuff. Good sign, I think, for the rest of the match, honestly, because it means that it will be a very fun one, very back and forth. But let's see, PJ versus that game going on, or that game over. They should be hosting. There it is. I just missed it. But yeah, the only two I can think of are like Reaper, which was really hyped up by a big YouTuber, and then people realized that the format wasn't what they expected. They realized that Stein was a lot more broken in the format that they thought it would be, and so people sort of fell off, right? It's a format that I think could grow in the future if people know what to expect with it. Like, if you're looking for a fun Stein format, that is one that you can play. But I think in general, that is going to be an acquired taste for a lot of people. So it's tough to say. I think Tengu Plant is one that I would call having declined quite a bit, even though it's still got its loyal base. I think that certain decisions have split the community for Tengu, which makes it kind of tough to maintain a large player base. And there's a lot of confusion around Tengu from like someone who's more casual, because there was decisions like, okay, do we have based around Dark World? Do we have based around not? And it's just kind of tough. It's still not dead, right? But I think it's declined a lot from where it was a while ago. But yeah, Redo's last over 64 player tournament was in April, which, that is a fair bit of time, right? But again, I don't necessarily think that means it's like super declining. I think it just means like it's sort of solidified around its core base. And I could definitely see it growing more in the future. But it's just sort of like whenever any format's hyped, it's going to have an initial spike in players, and then it's going to dip a bit. The question is, if it dips, like if it keeps dipping down, then it's in decline. If it dips a little bit and sort of like hit its like steady point, I think that is fine and healthy for a format to be in. But yeah, the Dark World debate was the big thing, I think, for Tengu for like a lot of casual players. I think honestly the thing that's buoyed Tengu so much is being in the 3v3s for Time Wizard. But now that Konami seems to be pivoting away from Time Wizard, I'm not sure if the player base will still be there for Tengu. And this is not me saying anything like about the quality of Tengu Plant format. I want to make that clear. I find Tengu Plant format pretty fun from what I've played of it. But, it just is what it is, right? It's how the community moved, how the community's taste has shifted. So it's kind of tough. Happy Labor Day to you as well, Dylan Ramirez. Yeah, I figured we got the day off here in the US, so might as well make a stream out of it. So yeah. Yeah, it hasn't cracked 30 since. Yeah, it's rough. And that I think would be like where I would get scared for Redo, right? Like if Redo like dropped like a significant amount, right? If they drop below like 32 people in every event, then that I think would be a fear. But like I don't think they're there yet. I think that they're still doing pretty good for retro format. And yeah, so I think it's fine. I think a lot of times people like to compare retro format performance to things like Edison and Goat, which are just Edison and Goat are the outliers for retro formats, right? That is like the ultimate success story there. And so comparing things to that can make things kind of seem out of whack for those formats, right? And so even though Redo is like nowhere near those levels, I think it's still fine. And I think it's one of the, more well-liked retro formats, one of the better like supported and played retro formats. So yeah, but I'm glad you were able to hop around for a stream, Dylan. But yeah, I hope that if you do want to enjoy these, you've been seeing some of the VODs. Because I'm not sure how well YouTube advertises the VODs to people. But yeah, there will be a stream every week. So if you miss a week and you're like, oh, is there a stream? You can just check the channel and see there. But yeah, it's always fun to catch the streams live, see the games going on as they're happening. Ooh, Snatch is going to be pretty good here because you can actually clear both monsters on the board. You just crash Scientist into a Faith, and then you probably go for like Sentry here. Yeah, just to shut off like a normal trap that might disrupt your play. But, oh, going for major damage. So leaving the Scientist, but going for big damage here. That also works. I mean, yeah, I guess if you only have one card in hand, it makes sense. But yeah. Yeah, if they always track at least 32 players, I think that they're fine probably. Yeah, because generally it goes by like powers of 2. So like you mentioned that they were below 64 players, which, is a threshold, I think. So it's important that you noted that threshold. But 32 is like the next threshold that if they drop below, it'd be rough. But yeah, and if it doesn't have prizes and it's getting those numbers, that's even better because prizes generally bring in more people than the average tournament will have. Because not every tournament will be able to provide prizes for it, right? Even the most popular formats like Goat and Edison, those don't always have prizes attached, and they still do pretty good numbers. But okay, getting in for 17-17 and then 6, so that will be pretty good. I mean, PJ is going to be gaining 1,000 next turn, which is the difficulty from doing this. But yeah, and Balter will banish 2 as well. Or not Balter, Darkblade the Dragon Knight will banish 2. Pretty cool effect to have on a card there. And yeah, no way to kill the Scientist here. So just pass him back. Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to prioritize damage here. I probably just would have gone for crashing the Scientist in. But you could also, be like, okay, if they have MST or something like that, they're going to use it on the Mirage, not the Snatch. So probably fine. Prediction on Vrain's format. So like which ones I think would be popular or not. I think the Toss, like that sort of set of formats there, has potential. The issue is that with Toss, you get a similar situation to Tengu, where Tengu, there was all the Dark World debate, like, do we have Dark World in the form? Do we not? And Toss is a similar sort of thing. Like, where do we draw the line for Toss? What is the format that we're going to really plant our flag in for being Toss? So it's kind of tricky there. Yeah, I do love Magical Science a lot, Dylan Ramirez. It's just so neat. Introduces a lot of interesting plays. It actually gets people using the extra deck, which, yes, Metamorphosis exists and decks can play that too, but the flexibility of Scientists just shows like how many cool cards were in the extra deck that were not able to be accessed. It is unfortunate that like Science of Decay exists, but I do still think that the card is fun to have around. So, but yeah, this is the risk to keeping these Sciences around. It gets attacked over by the Kaiku. But still, Run for Red in a pretty good spot overall, I think. The Kaiku is annoying for that Serpent. If PJ runs out another monster, hits in a Serpent, and then the Kaiku banishes it, then that's going to be tough. But I think things are still pretty good here overall. No MST being used up by PJ, but they're probably going to use it on the Mirage here. Raigeki Break. The question is, do you pitch to pop the set, or do you pitch to pop Mirage? Pitch to pop Mirage, I think that makes sense. But yeah, Squish said mainly toss either July or October, but the question is, which one is it, right? Because you got to nail down a time if you want a format to be good. Or not good, but like if you want it to have success. Because if you don't have that, then like people are like, okay, when is this? Can I play this card that came out, in September, for instance? Or can I not? And you could argue like, oh, well, the exact card pool for that doesn't really matter because nothing super meta came out in that time. I don't know if anything super meta came out in that time. I'm not as acquainted with the Vrain's era as I am with some others. But yeah, it still just does cause uncertainty, and there will be players who do care about that sort of thing. But yeah. Yeah, if you want to pull in players consistently, which I think is the goal for these sorts of events. Switching the Goat to attack and attacking into the Kaiku. Wow, okay. Seems like they got a monster they really want to commit to board. Damn. Oh, yep. Nib and IP are going to be big things in the format. Oh, Change of Heart, the set. Okay, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, going for a Moth here. What spell do you even get back? Maybe a change? Oh, actually, I think I would probably go meta. You go meta take Kaiku. That seems pretty good. Slows down the game a bit. That's what I would probably do. You can't use Snatch this turn, but Snatch could also be good. It's just Snatch gives them so much life points over a period of time. I would probably just do meta. Pot's also good. Forceful's good. Tough to say. Dylan says, Toss was my prime for playing competitive, but it's low-key overrated. It was just the first good format after a year of FTKs and Yulings. I mean, that's fair. I think that, though, there is value in just having a format that represents an era, even if it's not, like, the best thing in the world, right? I think Chimera Tech format falls into that, right? Chimera Tech format is a format, I think it's really fun. But part of the reason why I think it's really fun is because it really typifies the GX era as I imagine it. And there aren't really any good formats around that time, right? Chimera Tech's like the only one, right? So, a lot of people played Chimera Tech and bounced off it because they're just like, oh, this is just kind of boring. I don't like it that much. But for me, it's a format that, like, it captures the essence of a time period in the game that I really enjoyed. And so I like playing it. So I think Toss is a similar way, right? Like, even if it does have its objective flaws, I do think that the fact that, it represents the Vrains era, or like a part of the Vrains era that didn't really have any other good representatives, is enough to give it some value there. But yeah, Serpent, real hero, as Rakraz says. This thing sticking around, being annoying, is very, very good. So, yep, those Thousand Eyes both going back. And yeah, things are very interesting here. Serp can just crash into the Scientist here if they so wish, and it looks like it will. Scientist, of course, is not the most valuable card anymore to PJ because they're only at 1,000 life points exactly. But still, probably the best thing to do. And the Serpent will likely be coming back anyways. Warrior Lady coming down. Run for Thinking. So that might signal that it's a TT there. But yeah, Rakraz, I 100% agree. I don't play Modern that much. I just don't have time. But I really appreciate people who can enjoy Modern and also the past, right? I think that's part of the fun of doing these formats, right? The way I view these formats is that they're fun glimpses in the past. They're fun, refreshing differences from, like, the formats that you're playing now. Like, if you play Modern and you're like, man, I've played a lot of Modern, but I'm getting kind of tired of it. But I still like Yu-Gi-Oh! So what do? You either play more Modern and potentially burn out, or you could just dive into a retro format and, explore the game from a different angle. And that's pretty fun. Yeah, I heard, like, when AGOV format was happening and, like, post AGOV and stuff, people were, like, really talking it up. So that's also a format that I think will be fun. I think the current format that we're in right now, based on how people are talking about it, that could also be a popular retro format in the future, right? Because there's a variety of decks that people view as good. Maybe as time goes on, it will turn out that those decks aren't as good as people thought, and maybe there's just one deck that dominates, and it'll be sad. But right now, people seem to view it as a good format, so it could be pretty good. TT on the Abyss Soldier, but Prio is going to be used to bounce back the Abyss Soldier to dodge that TT. Very clever. I don't think you can chain to the TT, though, here. I think that this doesn't quite work, because I think that you would have had to pass Prio to do that, unless you intended to just summon out Abyss Soldier, bounce it back, in which case TT wouldn't have been activated. So that might be iffy. That might be an iffy one there. It might matter here too. Like, but yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. It might not matter as well. But yeah, just kind of not necessarily the best. I mean, it looks like it didn't matter. Abyss Soldier hits into a token. Setting a back row, but Break's probably just going to poke over Abyss Soldier and then try and pop the back row. At least that's what I would do. Oh, Serpent coming down. Ring on the Serpent. And that will do it. Yep, that does it. Cool stuff. Yeah, Mulch Army is kind of interesting. I think, honestly, like, I know that Mulch Armies are very polarizing because they're basically like Max C. I think the fact that they only... And keep in mind, this is from someone who doesn't play Modern. So, like, I've dabbled a little bit here and there, but I generally don't play Modern. Not because I think it's, like, awful or whatever, but just because I've been focused on playing, the older formats for the channel, right? But I do think that the fact that they are specific to like one type of something, like from the deck or from the graveyard or what have you. I think it does introduce interesting things. It can make some decks have a spot in the meta versus others, so that's kind of neat. So I don't instinctively hate them, right? Of course, I could play against them and find out, oh, these things are absolutely awful to play against, and I despise them. But right now, I'm sort of ambivalent. Rackgrass says, first experience of Yu-Gi-Oh! Was in primary school with the Yu-Gi Kaiba starter deck. It's a core memory. Yeah, Yu-Gi Kaiba format is big, partially for that reason, because a lot of people remember picking up the decks, playing with their friends, and it was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, Yu-Gi Kaiba format has devolved a little bit, where you have Sawmill being a very good deck in the format. I'm not necessarily going to say it's tier 0 in the format, but the fact that it's very, very good, and the fact that it's very, very let's just say not everyone's cup of tea to play against, is something that, makes the format not as popular anymore. People still do play it, and I'm happy that they're still able to have tournaments, even if the tournaments are very small, and that they've got their devoted player base there. But yeah, it's probably not something that I would play again in the future. Dylan says, I disconnected, so IDK, what y'all, if y'all are still talking about the playing toss format, playing the tier 2 and rogue decks, top tier modern Yu-Gi-Oh fun. Yeah, I think that's something with a lot of formats too, like not just toss. I think that, a lot of people get frustrated with something like GOAT format, for instance, where they're like, oh, everything's Chaos Turbo. I don't want to play Chaos Turbo when I play GOAT. I want to play, this fun strategy from this era that, like, is cool, right? And a lot of people take out that aggression on the format itself, when realistically, what you want to do there is just get some friends together, agree to play lower powered decks, and just play those decks, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And I feel like a lot of people get frustrated at the game because they're like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to go into a tournament and play my deck and have fun with it, right? And so it just comes down to expectation, right? The same thing is in toss. Like if you join in a toss tournament with like a rogue deck, right? And you're expecting like, oh, I'll be able to win games with this all the time and all that stuff. Maybe you'll be able to win a game or two, right? I'm not necessarily saying that's not a possibility. But at the same time, you have to acknowledge that, like, the deck you're playing is tier 2 a rogue for a reason, and it might not work out the best for you. So if you really want the experience of like playing pretty evenly matched games with those style of decks, just pick up the deck with a friend or ask in like the Discord servers, like, hey, anyone want to play like, a tier 2 deck against me because I'm playing a tier 2 deck as well, and things like that. But yeah. Rackrat says, it's fine if you don't like Modern. I have committed the ultimate sin, though, by playing actually other card games. Ooh, the ultimate sin, playing the Forbidden Magic the Gathering, or Pokemon, or even Lorcana. Ooh. Yeah, I'm sort of one of the people who's like, yeah, I like all of them. Or I don't know. I've liked the card games that I've played. Maybe I don't like them as much as others, but I think they're all fun at a baseline. I can understand why people would enjoy them. So if that's what you want, go for it, Honestly, like, part of the reason why I settled on Yu-Gi-Oh! From Zero for this channel is, one, I love Yu-Gi-Oh! The most as a kid. And I do like the fact that there's no resource system. I think it makes it very unique. And the fact that there's no set rotation means that the progression through time can, like, give the channel, like, a bit of a take on, like, the evolution of the game, like, the direct evolution of the game. Whereas, like, if I had done, like, Magic Gathering from Zero, when the set rotations come around, it's like, okay, how is the game changing? It's a bit more nebulous to tell. But I do think that, if Magic Gathering had had a better manual simulator like Dueling Book, maybe I would have started with that. Maybe I would have done a Magic Gathering from Zero, and we'd be deep into, I don't know, let's see. Magic Gathering started a couple years earlier, and then if we're like 7 years in, 8 years in, or would that be Ravnica? Did Ravnica happen around that time, or I don't know. We'd be somewhere in Magic's history by this point. And that would be interesting too. But yeah, I think the fact that Dueling Book exists and it's such an accessible and free, Yu-Gi-Oh! Resource to just play around with, I think is very, very nice. And so that made the choice to do Yu-Gi-Oh! From Zero very simple and straightforward. And I've been enjoying it. So maybe someday I'll do like a Magic Gathering from Zero, or, Pokemon from Zero, or Lorcana from Zero once we get to that point. But yeah, right now, sticking with Yu-Gi-Oh. But if you want to play whichever card game you want, I wish you all the luck and all the fun. Squid says, speaking of Yugi Kaiba, I've been thinking about a weird idea on Stall Mill I call Stall Beat, using 2K butts to stall and using Soul Control to beat over everything with Summon Skull. People have actually tried out that strategy a bit in Yugi Kaiba. Part of the reason is, like, if you've got a Megami versus a Summon Skull, right? You know, Summon Skull can basically serve as a 2K wall, except being a 2500 wall that just sits in attack, right? The downside of this is if your opponent Change of Hearts it or Monster Reborns it, then they can get over your monster. But the Monster Reborn situation is not as bad because oftentimes they're playing Summon Skulls of their own, so they'll have that in rotation anyways to bring back off Reborn. And so really the downside is Change of Heart. But you play Maneater Bugs anyways, so like if they can Change of Heart a Maneater Bug and pop one of your things, you know, what's the difference between that and Change of Hearting a Summon Skull and getting over your stuff, right? So there has been actual thoughts about that. The issue is, or one of the issues at least, is that part of the power of Stall Mill is that it invalidates your opponent's trap holes. And so Summon Skull plays into that a bit. Now, you can get around that with Ultimate Offering shenanigans. But oftentimes you don't want to be using Ultimate Offering to like chain block a summon in Stall Mill, because that means you're also committing another defender that you want to have in hand as basically a battle trick with Ultimate Offering. So it's a bit tricky. But it is something that can work. I'm not saying it can't work. I'm just saying oftentimes it's less optimal than Megami. But it could work. And also, the amount of games I've seen where Stall Mill does just get offensive and kill the opponent with battle damage is non-zero. I've seen it happen a fair amount of times. Not like every time, not even most of the time, but it does happen a fair amount. And so Summon Skull could make that a bit easier as the backup game plan. So yeah, definitely something that could work. Oh, yep, that's the end of the game. Yeah, snatch and change on the tokens. Blade Knight attacking in for game. Let's see. And it looks like PJ and GeoMyFS. Is that still going? Looks like that might not be going anymore. Maybe just wrapped up. Or PJ versus Prada. Where's that? No, it is still going. Yeah. I guess the GeoMyFS game was first round, so that'd be tricky. But yeah, I mean, I would be interested in doing Pokemon from zero, largely because I never actually played the game as a kid, but I did collect the cards. So it'd be cool to actually, see what the game was actually like. But yeah, anything's possible. I don't know if Pokemon has a good manual stimulator online like Dueling Book that I could use, so that might make it tricky. But any tabletop simulator is a thing at the end of the day, so like it could work there. But yeah, I've never played Vanguard. I've never actually. If you asked me to name one Vanguard card, I probably could not name one because I'm just very out of touch with what Vanguard does. But I have heard people enjoy it, so that's one that I could also explore at some point in the future. Rip, yeah. So yeah, that would just be Tabletop Simulator, I guess, for if I wanted to try out Pokemon from zero. Yeah, I mean, also, I guess I could always do like physical cards for all of these things, but the issue with that is like that requires a fair bit of money. So that's why, like Yu-Gi-Oh! From zero and stuff is so simple, because I don't need to really pay anything to actually just load up cards on Dueling Book and play them. But yeah, looks like a pretty good board for Run from Red. Oh, interesting. I thought that this was 1-1. Wow. Okay, so it's 0-1-0. So this game might have been going on for a fair bit. Painful Choice here. Painful Choice also in this format, which some people do not like. I like it, though. I think it adds a bit of skill to the format because Painful Choice, very tricky card to use well. Squitch says, for the first few years of Pokemon, Big Basic Beatdown was the best deck. Honestly, similar to Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know what the best deck was in Magic, but I would not be surprised if it was similar to early Magic as well. Although I know that Magic did get into some like crazy combo decks at some point. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what Magic decks were like the best decks around. But yeah. Yeah, Vanilla Beat. I mean, that's the most card games, I think, when they start out, go for that Vanilla Beat strat, just simple and sweet. Vanilla Beat. Yeah, I'm sure Pokemon's fun as well. The one thing with Pokemon is that I've heard that there's like no interaction with your opponent on their turn, which is kind of weird. Like that's one of the things I like most about Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic is that like you have the opportunity to interact with the opponent. Um, but that's not necessarily a deal breaker. Like I'd be willing to try it out. I'm sure it's got other things to make up for that. And it'll be interesting to see how that works. Uh, Comfy taking away a Jowgen. Jowgen could be pretty nasty here. Just popping like the Senshi. But interesting tech card to bring in. But yeah, Pokemon VGC from Zero. But did that not like that's not a card game though, right? So that would make it I like card games mainly for the YouTube channel at least. I do play some non-card games. Like I played Celeste for instance on stream in the past, although my Celeste game is completely broken now because I messed up a mod, I think. But yeah, I do like some games like that, but I generally this is gonna be blasphemous to say I've never gotten into the Pokemon video games, unfortunately. So yeah, it's not necessarily something that appeals to me all that much to play around with. But it's definitely something that would be interesting to see. Like I could definitely see other people doing that. And if someone wants to make that channel, go for it. I won't sue for intellectual property. Maybe Squish will, but I won't. So, but yeah, 600 pounds for a pre-made competitive deck in Vanguard. Oh my goodness, that's a lot. I mean, I know that Yu-Gi-Oh decks can also run a pretty penny, but the thing with Yu-Gi-Oh decks a lot of the time is that you're getting staples that can then apply in other decks too. So like, it's not necessarily as bad, but like 600 pounds, geez, that's a lot. Because if people don't know, a pound is more than $1, so that is over $600. I forget the exact exchange rate. It also has probably changed since when I was in Britain. Like I went to like Britain in the last year of undergrad, in college, which was neat. I was there for like a month. Yeah, pound is 1.35 US dollars. But yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh is cheaper right now, as Chris says. And also one of the nice things about Yu-Gi-Oh right now is that there are more expensive decks, but there are also cheaper decks as well. And like there are like 3 decks right now that people are viewing as like really good. And you never want to hear your opponent saying, sorry, this is tough. This is a tough choice here. When it's in this simplified of a game state, that means that they might be on the verge of winning, which is not good. And I can definitely, I mean, I don't know if they're, this is tricky. I think PJ's thinking about bringing out another thing with scientists. The issue with that is that you go down to 500 life points, so that makes it kind of tough. Okay, looks like they're just going to crash the scientist, beat over the Parshath, and that'll be it. Going for a pre-mat here for the Parshath, maybe? Yeah, for the Parshath. And then the Darkblade will go back to the deck. Okay. Interesting stuff. Oh, it is more expensive. I was figuring, like, that it could be less expensive because, the knock. Oh, yeah, that's rough. There was also an argument for not bringing back something because the, Soup was in hand. But, I mean, it's kind of tough to say because if they had another monster, then that would be the end of the game. But yeah, I feel like the cheapest Yu-Gi-Oh deck might be cheaper than 600 pounds, right? If you want like the most expensive deck in the format, I could definitely see it being more expensive. But I thought that like, isn't like Yummy relatively cheap? Maybe I'm wrong about that. But let's dive back into Clemens versus Wagamuffin here. Intense games. These games have been so intense. Like this game's down to game 4. Looks like Clemens is in a pretty tough spot. But we've seen Clemens come back from some bad spots before. Nope, never mind. Wow, very good games. Wagamuffin moving on to the finals now. I have not played Legends of Runeterra, although I've heard very good things about it. Unfortunately, I was hearing good things about it, and I was like, oh, maybe I'd check that out. And then I started hearing bad things about it. I started hearing that like some of their recent stuff has actually been pretty bad. So now I'm like, oh, do I play it? I don't know. But also like the virtual card games, like if I actually want to get into them, it's kind of tricky. Oh, Yummy's about the same price as Dex and Vanguard. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, so I guess it is more expensive. Jeez. Wow. Yeah, no worries about only speaking in pounds. I think it's good to have people speaking in different units in the chat because then it gets people thinking about converting, right? Because you're going to be hearing like if you live in the world, right, especially the English speaking world, like if you live in Britain, you're going to be hearing about things mentioned in US dollars, and if you live in America, you're going to be hearing things about things listed in pounds, right? It's just going to happen because we live in an interconnected world, right? We're exchanging content from all across the world to each other. And so it's going to happen. So it's good to get people actively thinking like, okay, what is this relative to what I know, right? So start throwing out meters in the chat too. Uh, us dirty feet havers are gonna need to learn how to speak in meters at some point. Um, but yeah, scapegoat coming down, putting down 4 tokens. Um, but yeah, I am a fan of meters. I do like feet though, because I feel like feet are a good like middle length between centimeters and meters, and no one uses decimeters, at least as far as I know. Maybe in the UK they use decimeters left and right, but as far as I know, people are not using decimeters. Um, which a decimeter would be like a third of a foot. So it's not even like the most useful thing in the world, um, but yeah, I like feet for being like a medium thing between centimeters and meters. I feel like a meter is a little bit too long to describe a lot of what I want to talk about, but a centimeter is a lot too small to describe what I want to talk about a lot of the time. But I mean, in college, I was a science major. I did physics and math, so I was very familiar with the metric system. Um, and yeah, it's a good system. I think it is a good system. I think it's probably what the US should have, but I do like that we have feet. Um, I also will say I like Fahrenheit better than Celsius, uh, because I feel like, so if you don't know, Celsius is based around the temperature that water boils and freezes. So that's why 0 degrees Celsius is freezing, 100 degrees Celsius is boiling for water. Uh, that's what that's based around. But Fahrenheit's based around the human body, basically. Not like quite, but that's why the human body temperature is around 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Uh, and if you get down to 0 degrees Fahrenheit, that's very, very cold. So it feels more natural to the human body like to have a longer scale like that. But I don't know. That's just that's my opinion. I do like Fahrenheit better. I think you're using science terms. I think honestly, just use Kelvin. Kelvin is the best of the temperature unit for science, in my opinion. I know that makes a lot of things annoying, especially for chemists, but I don't care. I want to know how far away from absolute zero we are. Uh, good, clip me all you want. I'm happy to be clipped. Yeah, the English don't accept our notes despite it being legal tender. The English and the Scots, name a more iconic pair of rivals. Yeah, the history between England and Scotland is also very interesting. I think it's funny. Like in America, we cover like the history of our country, like after settlers and colonists arrive, over the course of like the 12 years of public school education we have, and in doing that, we repeat a lot, right? We cover like basic, 1776 history in elementary school, just talking about the War for Independence, things like that. We get a little bit deeper into the founding fathers, like in middle school. But then high school, that's when we like go through in either 1 year or 2 years of history, like basically from 1776 to the present day, and seeing, just covering it all there. You can't do that with British history. British history has a lot going on. There's a lot of British history to cover. So yeah, I think it's probably good for Americans to learn a little bit more about that, but just learning more about world history in general, not just the British. A lot of interesting history out there. But yeah, I am a confirmed feet pick enjoyer. Okay, I don't know why that's a shameful thing. I think feet are a beautiful thing. Uh, uh, I'm just trolling for a clip right now. I'm just like, clip me all you want. But yeah, I do find it interesting. I do find it interesting that I feel like I don't know if I can talk about this while still being monetized, but I feel like foot fascination is shamed a lot more than a lot of other things. And I find that fascinating. Like, why is feet where the line is drawn for a lot of this, right? Like, people don't really shame some of the I don't want to call it more extreme because that's like I don't necessarily know if I would call it more extreme, but just people don't shame some of the stranger things out there to the level that they do feet. And I'm very curious why that is. I don't know a good reason for that. Clip me more because maybe that will get the sort of discussion going about this. I want to know why people are fascinated with the feet part of this. Like, you know, I'm sure that people have hand fascinations as well. Why is that not shamed? Why is like, you know, I'm just not sure. I'm not sure how we as a culture settled on feet as the shameful fascination there. So I just don't know. Maybe it's because like ankles used to be scandalous, and so feet are a natural extension of that. But yeah, I'd be curious to see. But yeah. Anyway, that's why I picked up 3 copies of the Ash Blossom feet art the other day, just for this conversation. Konami knows what they're doing with that art, you know. Okay, so painful choice going off here. Sending a Comfy, sending a Knock, a Sook, a Think, and maybe another Think. But, yeah, I'm curious what Sook is interesting. Sook is good because you set down the restrict and then you can flip it up because it's in defense mode right now. Check out the set that deals with that. Going for meta is also interesting because meta shuts down. If you meta away one of your other tokens for a Sook, then it's kind of tough because that shuts down your both your Thousand Eyes from attacking. So they'd probably go meta over Thousand Eyes and suck that up. But yeah. So flow effects are different from in GOAT because it's like you can flip summon after they're set, but only if they're in defense mode at the start of the turn. If they have not changed their battle position manually, it's weird. So basically, if the battle position of a card is changed by an effect, and you haven't changed it manually yet, like just by switching its battle position by game mechanics, you can't manually switch it after it's changed by effect that turn. But listen, I will say part 4 of JoJo's probably my favorite part. So, you know, might be a JoJo's reference, right? But yeah, we got to put daggers in our socks just in case they start melting off. Exactly. You got to real men talk with their feet, you know, and real women probably too. Yeah, the feet are not hand language, it's foot language, you know. But yeah, they're gonna give the Parshath here. Parshath tribute over restrict attack in the set. Yep, there it goes. It might be a spy, which would block off the Parshath, but I mean, Night Seal's pretty good. I feel like PJ probably gets out pretty good in that trade there. I'm excited for JoJo's Part 7 whenever that comes out. I have read Part 7, and Part 7 is pretty good. It's pretty good. I like it. It was when JoJo switched from being a weekly magazine to a monthly magazine, and I'm just a gooner in general. Squish. That's why I play the game. I feel like most Yu-Gi-Oh players are gooners. We just gotta go mask off, you know, admit it, embrace our goon, you know. I do read a lot of superhero comics, and they get goons in there, the little minions who work for supervillains. So I could be one of those too. But yeah, I'm a gooner in general. I will goon anything. I view it as a personal challenge to goon. I feel like in the modern world, gooning is easier than ever, you know? So we got to take advantage of that while we can. Let's see what PJ is going to pick from this. This is an interesting 5. I would say, honestly, give the DMOC. Because DMOC is much easier to get back from grave than it is to get out from hand. It can happen, but in order to get it out from hand, you're going to need to commit a couple resources into this. Whereas getting out from grave takes less resources most of the time. Of course, Run for Red knows this. And so the question is, why did they send that, right? Yeah, it's very tricky. They do have some good spells in grave to get back with that DMOC there. if they get it out. But yeah, I mean, Konami does monetize gooning. Open secret. They do it all the time. You know, gotta have the waifu tax on like IP, on Appaloosa, on Spell Striker, or not Spell Striker, Sky Striker. Gotta have that waifu tax out there. Yeah, I do like Part 7 a lot. I will say Part 7 is my favorite villain of the JoJo's franchise. The thing with Part 4, though, is Part 4's vibes are immaculate. I love Part 4 for the vibes. It's just like you're hanging out with some friends. And I think that's why Part 4 is my favorite part. But I go back and forth on this. I mix around the parts that are my favorite, you know. I think that there are a lot of great parts in the series. So you can't really go wrong with most of them. But yeah, I sort of like hop between like 4, 5, 7, even 6 sometimes. Mainly because 6 is funny. I say that 7 is my favorite villain. Which I won't say the name of that villain in case people haven't seen it, although it's not like it's a secret. But Part 6, if you haven't seen Part 6, I'm going to do a bit of a spoiler here, although actually that's not even a secret. It's not a spoiler, really. It's just the name of the villain. Pucci is probably, he's up there with the villain for Part 7 for being my favorite villain in the series. Because he is a much more imminent threat than a lot of the villains in other parts. Like, if you think about, and I'm only going to talk about the stand parts because I feel like Part 1, too short, right? Like, Dio is around the entire time, but the part's so short that it kind of has to be. Part 2, the Pillar Men are around for a lot of it, but I also think a lot of it's devoted to just sort of like training. And I wouldn't say that like any one of the Pillar Men really stands out until like the very end, right? Like Cars is not like, I would say that Cars is not the most iconic Pillar Man for most of that part. I would say he's actually one of the least iconic Pillar Men in that part. Part 2 is great, don't get me wrong. But I will say it's not great because of the villains. Even though their villain theme, so good. The Pillar Men theme, great. Part 3, I actually am a bit of a Part 3 hater. I like the end of Part 3, but I think Part 3 drags on for way too long. Now, some people enjoy that because they like the vibes of Part 3 a lot, and they view Part 3 as sort of like the hangout part for them. For me, I view that as Part 4, so I'm not really the biggest fan of Part 3. But for Part 3, the villain is great. But, you know, it's like, he's sort of a rehash of a previous villain because he's Dio, right? It's just like he showed up again. Am I a certified uncensored Harpy Lady enjoyer? That's actually where I draw the line. Mainly because I like the card art that I'm used to from childhood, and the card art I was used to in childhood was the censored art, so I like that better. But yeah, the lost art for those are goon bait right there. The game has had goon bait since the beginning. But yeah, so that's my opinion on Part 3. I also don't really like Jotaro as a protagonist because he's too stoic for me. I get that's his appeal, but like for me, it's too much. Part 4, I love that part so much. It's just so fun. Just going around town, like encountering stand users in like, there's some life or death battles, but most of the time it's just like, you know, a minor problem that they're just having a stand battle over, which is really fun. I agree. Gooning is a basic human right. Thank you, Ratgrass, for pointing out something that needs to be said. But yeah. Yeah, Destornado is not on the call. Right? So it was targeted the call, but call was not attached to the Balter. Yeah, call was attached to the Parshath, but then got meted into a Balter. But yeah, so Part 4 I love. I think that the Part 4 main stand's ability is maybe my favorite main stand ability, although that's contested by Part 6, which we'll get to in a second. Part 5, I really, really dig it. I think a lot of that's just the anime. But I really love, I just, oh man, Diavolo's fight, Diavolo and Doppio's fight against Metallica is like my favorite villain fight in JoJo's, just because like it's so good. And that really, you know, made Diavolo a more interesting villain for me. Even though I acknowledge the end of Part 5, kind of not really the best. And I think that Diavolo is too absent for a lot of it to really go down as like one of my most iconic villains. That villain fight made my favorite villain fight in the series. Would I goon to Ash Blossom? Well, no. I shouldn't say. I was gonna say 100% for the meme, and then I was like, oh wait, Ash Blossom's like a child, right? So I would not goon to. I would not goon to that. I've not read Purple Haze Distortion. I've heard that it's pretty good. And also, I do think it does solve the problem that you mentioned, where like Fugo he's not really in part 5. He has like one moment and then he leaves, which I think was a good choice because like it actually showed like, damn, there are people leaving the group because they don't want to go up against this guy. Like this is serious, you know? Yeah, almost Cliff. You almost got me, but no. I realized I was like, wait a second. Uh, it's sort of in the trap tricks realm where like Konami makes them to be gooned, but like they are children. And it's like, ooh, that's not good, Konami. You know, I will play it if it's a fun sort of mechanic, but I don't want to goon to that. No siree. Yeah. But yeah, so part 5, I like a lot of what goes on in the plot of part 5. And I think the anime, part 5's anime is probably my favorite anime part in JoJo so far. Which might just be because the way Netflix released Stone Ocean, but it is what it is. I loved part 5's anime. Stone Ocean, very interesting because Stone Ocean has my favorite main JoJo. It has arguably my favorite JoJo villain, although again that's debatable between Pucci and Valentine. Would I goon to Traptrix Murmillo? No, but I would goon to Gladiator Beast Murmillo. What can I say? I love fish. But yeah, part 6 has my favorite JoJo in it, and Jolene. She honestly has one of my favorite JoJo stand abilities. It has some of my favorite JoJo's fights just because it gets so absurd. And I love that. Like, part of the reason I love JoJo's is because it gets so absurd. Like when she makes like the thing that prints out a thing, like it's just so absurd. It's like, that's great. I love that. I will say parts of it get a little bit too absurd. Like the hypnotizing people into snails is kind of iffy. But yeah, I love the main JoJo. I love the main villain. I love their stands. I love some stand battles. I actually think the part though is kind of, the plot of it is kind of not the best. Even though I love the setting of the part as well. Like there's so much good stuff in part 6. I feel like it just drops the ball somehow. I don't know why. Maybe it's in the supporting cast. Like FF is great, but I don't really like Anasui. I don't like Weather Report. I don't like what's the kid? I don't like the kid with the baseball cap. Emporio. I don't really like him that much. But yeah, am I gooning to Cosmo Dark Witch? I think so. I think Cosmo Dark Witch is fine, right? Unless I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure she's fine. Yeah, I'll goon her. I would goon to Crystal Beast Ruby Carbuncle. Yeah, it's a fairy. It's like it's not a human. It's a weird sprite. I'm sure it's been around for a long time because crystals take a lot to sort of become crystals, right? I'd goon to all the Crystal Beasts, honestly. But yeah, so that's my opinion on part 6. Part 7, I'm not gonna get too into details, but part 7 has my favorite sort of JoJo best friend, right? Which he's great. I can't wait for him to get adapted. I think part 7's main JoJo is also interesting. He's not my favorite, but I do like him a fair bit. But compared to like Jolene and Josuke from part 4, doesn't really compare. But he's still good. I understand why people do like him a lot. I like the stands in part 7 a lot. I think the stand battles are great. I think the plot in part 7 is the best of the JoJo parts, honestly. The villain, arguably the best JoJo villain, even though people have legitimate complaints about him, which I understand. But yeah, part 8, wasn't the biggest fan of, honestly. Part 8 actually stopped me reading. I used to read JoJo's monthly, and then I was like, through part 8, I was like, is that it in the end? Because I read the entire final arc of part 8, and I didn't think it was the final arc because it introduced the final villain basically out of nowhere, and I'm not a fan of that. And so basically it was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't read this monthly. So I will read part 9 at some point, but yeah, part 8 I'm not the biggest fan of. I think if I go back and look at it again, there are probably things that are interesting about it. I love the memes around the final villain stand. Like that is great, but overall, I'm not like the biggest part 8 enjoyer. I've heard part 9 is great though, so I should check out part 9, which I will do at some point. But yeah, Bird Sturgix also great. You know, I mentioned that I love superheroes, so got to goon to them too. You know, listen, you can goon to makeup. I think gooning to makeup's fine. I think people have too much stigma against makeup. Makeup is perfectly natural. which I know is kind of ironic because people are like, oh, makeup's unnatural. Makeup has been a part of human culture for like a very long time. And so I think it's fine. Like, I don't know. However you want to present yourself is how you present yourself, right? Who am I to judge? Yeah. Amber Mammoth. Oh, don't get me started on Amber Mammoth. I'm going to have to shut off stream if you mention Amber Mammoth again. Because, it just gets me too hot and bothered. I can't with Amber Mammoth. But yeah, it looks like the final match is going to have a little bit of delay. But it should be fine. Yeah, so we will wait a little bit, talk about random stuff, gooning, what have you. Is on the topic of manga. Is anyone reading any good manga lately? I'm reading. I try and keep caught up with all the current Shonen Jump manga. I think I'm caught up with like all. Well, no, I'm not. I'm caught up with like all except for 2. I'm not caught up with New Age Exorcist. Which I might get caught up at some point. I kind of expected New Age Exorcist to get axed, and then it's never gotten axed. And so I was like, do I need to read this? Because that is a Gooner manga right there. New Age Exorcist. That is pure Gooner manga stuff. And I will read Gooner manga. Don't get me wrong. But New Age Exorcist is just kind of like, it's not even too much. It's just like kind of eh. Am I Goon? I'm 100% gooning to DD Warrior Lady. 100%. No question about that. That is no question. DD Warrior Lady is great. She's got a story behind her too. Oh, which makes her even better. But yeah. So yeah, I'm not reading New Age Exorcists. Let me see. I'm gonna actually pull up the Shonen Jump manga app that I read from. Just check if there are any others that I don't read. I don't read Me and Roboco. That one I don't read because yeah, it's been going on for like 200 chapters. So I don't read that one. But yeah, I read everything else, I think. I think I read everything else. Let me just scroll through. Yeah, I read everything else. So that's fun. It's fun to see what new mangas are coming up for the anime pipeline. Like I know to be hyped for Kagurabachi, because that's going to be hype when it happens. Okay, looks like Wagamama's Run Fred starting. That series is great. One of the best in Jump right now. Yeah, Akane Banashi. That's going to be peak when it comes out. High Prophecy Magician is one of the most goonable Yu-Gi-Oh cards in the game. I 100% goon to High Prophecy Magician. 100%. Oh, wait, I'm thinking of High Priestess of Prophecy. Which one's High Prophecy Magician? High Prophecy Magician. Is there High Prophecy Magician? I thought it was just High Priestess of Prophecy. I know there's like Temperance, I think, of Prophecy is also one. But I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, there's no High Prophecy Magician, I don't think. Oh, yeah, I meant right. Yeah. But yeah, point still stands. I 100% goon to High Priestess of Prophecy. Great card. What's the other one? Is it Temperance? Might be Temperance of Prophecy. Yeah, Temperance is pretty good. I like the mystery behind it, you know. Yeah. Okay. So they painful choice. Pot agreed, forceful, comfy, pre-mat, and call. Looks like Wagamama's gonna give them the comfy. Might mean that they don't have the like most like best cards in hand. Looks like they got Reflect Bounder, limited card, I think, in this format. And just some more monsters. So yeah, if you got all the normal summons, you don't need all of them. You can cause your opponent to lose 1,000 life points and pitch one. Makes sense. The Donald Zalug. Oh, Cyber Dragon? 100% good into Cyber Dragon. 100%. Have you seen how sleek its coat is? Oh, so shiny. I can't not goon to it, honestly. Yeah. I mean, most cards of the game are goonable, right? I feel like that's just a fact of the game, you know? That's why if you play Yu-Gi-Oh, you are a gooner. I don't make the rules. It just is what it is, you know? Breaker going to come down. That's going to get solemned. And looks like Runfred's going to pass. So I'm in a tough spot here, if I'm being honest. Painful choice, though, can help get them out of this. These are some painful choices, too. Let's see. Heavy getting sent. Yeah, Heavy's pretty good against those two sets. Hot. We know that Painful is the draw as well. So this means that Runfred knows the exact hand, right? Because Kaika was sent. So the last card in hand are Grandmaster, Reflect Bounder, and Dawn's League. So I'm gooning to every non-kid monster in Yu-Gi-Oh! Squish. Bar none, you know? If it's not a kid, I'm gooning to it. That's I don't make the rules. It's just how it is. How it must be. But yeah, go for it. Clip it all. Clip it all. I mean, honestly, this will probably just get me more subs. You know, I'll take more subs for it. I mean, yeah, it's fine. I feel like people understand that this is largely tongue-in-cheek. But yeah, it's just funny. It's fun to have fun. So a pre-mat is going to be the card given, so that means there must be like an MST or Dust in the back row, or Raigeki Break. So Wagamon can sort of imagine that being the case. So now Dawn attacking in. Scapegoat is the other one here, it looks like. So now Wagamon has a pretty good idea of what the back row is, which is very nice. They could set it, but the thing is that Runfred knows the exact card they'll be setting, so they're just going to leave the Dawn there. Pass back to Run. So the question is, what is Runfred going to do now? They're going to think. I'm confirmed everything enjoyer, okay? I enjoy everything. So, nothing wrong with that. Everyone's got their own preferences. Everyone's got their own tastes. So, my taste is a Yu-Gi-Oh card. I'm Yu-Gi-Oh sexual. That's me. Only attracted to Yu-Gi-Oh cards. It makes things tough, honestly, a lot in my life, but I wouldn't have it any other way. So interesting that this was sort of like a bluff here, where they actually did not have an MST or Dust Tornado set. They have the meta set. So yeah, that's very interesting. Now, Wagamon could just pre-mat something out here, just so the Thousand Eyes can't get over it, but that's sort of just a stopgap measure. So yeah, it's kind of tricky. I wonder what they're going to do. Again, we know Reflect Bounder, we know Grandmaster, we know Pre-Mat in hand. And those are the only cards we know. So, what's going to happen? Rhoda is pretty good. You can go Rhoda for Exiled, pop the Thousand Eyes, bring back something with Pre-Mat, attack in. So it seems like that's what they're going to do. But again, you know, Runfred knows the entire hand. There's no surprises here. Yep, there's the Pre-Mat. Pre-Mat for Exiled again. Attack over a token, pop the set. And that's pretty good. The issue is that now they're in a pretty tough spot. I'm a warrior enjoyer, not necessarily a war enjoyer, unfortunately. War is one of the things that I don't enjoy in general. I would much prefer the be peace. But yeah, I do like warriors. Not a 0. They're at 300 life points here. Yeah. Tough spot to be in, for sure. Because if Runfred at any other monster, the Warrior Lady can crash in and then attack directly. So the question is, what does Runfred do? It looks like they're going to go for a Sasuke here. Are they going to attack? Looks like they are going to attack into the token. Looks like that will go through. And then main 2, they do have a back row, so they can potentially help here. Ring, though, on the Sasuke, and we know that's going to go through because they set a card. We know the remaining cards in hand are not book. So, rough stuff for Wagamuffin. Occasionally that can happen. If the opponent knows the entire hand, they can sort of play it like a fiddle and just dominate the game. So, yeah, rough stuff. But, anywho, what will game 2 be like? Are they going to side out? It seems like they're on a pretty, even sort of deck list. I think they're both playing Warrior. Do I goon to Charizard? Oh, 100%. Any Pokemon cards too? Well, not any Pokemon cards, but most Pokemon cards. Yeah, those are also. I'm just a card gooner, honestly. If it's on a playing card, I will likely goon to it. Yeah, that's just me. Okay. Wagamuffin drawn for turn. Pot of Greed drawn 2. I will say Charizard one of the coolest Pokemon as well. I love that just like you get to ride it around. I am a Harpy Gooner. Again, I like the censored art better than the uncensored art, but I am a Gooner. I Harpy Goon. I goon to everything. I'm a Gooner through and through. Forceful here will give Wagamuffin a taste of what Runfred had last turn, where you get to sort of see the entire hand to decide what to do with it. Sending back a Ring. Ring's pretty good. What will they do now? Looks like there's a creature swap. What is Abs mooring? I know Tribe is Tribe Infected Virus, but what is Abs? No Absolute Zero, and that also would not be in the main deck. ABS. What uncensored arts am I gooning to? Monster Reborn art, that's a big one. Offering to the Doomed art, that's another big one. Not Mystic Tomato. Unfortunately, not Mystic Tomato. I like the TCU version a little bit better with the teeth. Yeah, those are the main ones. Graceful Charity. That's a good one. Shining Angel. Another good one there. But, yeah. I like most of them. Most of them. Yeah. Blade Knight. With only 3 back row here. Instead of 4. Maybe playing around heavy. Maybe, they've got a Dust Tornado. But swap here was known about. So what is Wagamuffin? Oh, they're going to let that go through, interestingly enough. It's interesting. Runfred going to set 1 and then attack in to the set. To negate this if it is a flip monster. What is ABS? What is Abs? Oh, I'm gooning to swords. Was that a question? I mean, I'm gooning to them. 100%. Dust Tornado does come down on another creature swap. Interesting. I wonder if that was in hand already or if that was drawn. Anyway, we're probably going to see a flip summon here. Kaiku comes down, setting 1, setting another. Tagging in for 18. Not flipping up the set. So that like Serp? Is that like Fiber Jar? Could be Fiber Jar. Interesting. Tribe coming down. So Tribe can deal with Kaiku here. And they are going to prio. Oh, Abyss Soldier. That's what it is. Okay. Yeah, so pitching Abyss Soldier. Trying to target the Kaiku, but that will get booked down. So it can just attack over the Kaiku if they want. But they're going to choose to attack into the set. That's going to get Saku'd. Getting rid of the Tribe. Runfred setting 1, passing back. And what's Wagamuffin going to do now? It's going to be the end of the stream after this match. It will probably be the end of the stream after this match. Unless there's other stuff to do. But yeah. After this match, I'll also announce on the Discord server the Frog monthly tournament happening. Not this upcoming weekend, but the following weekend. Next week's locals will be in Frog format to prepare for that. So people can have their fun practicing the FTK to their heart's content. So yeah, I assume that's a fiber jar set. Because otherwise they wouldn't just try and be ramming into it. But they've had the protection for it. So, yeah, so I can't think of something I'd do after, but I don't know. If you have ideas, let me know. I also do have stuff later in the night that I'll need to do, so it's probably better that I end the stream so I actually have time to do it. But yeah, Hollow Knight Silksong's coming out at some point though, so I might in the future try and stream that. We'll see. We'll see how that goes, and if I have time to stream it. But that is something that's going to be eating up some of my spare time. So, Reflect Banner coming down, that will be enough for lethal. So it looks like it was a morphing jar. So I guess that the mooring was morphing. But yeah, I think that was a case of, again, like both players were knowing what the other had exactly and just able to counteract whatever they did, which is a downside to Fortnite with that sort of like hand ripping ability. But unfortunately, that's that. Why haven't I been doing Lightsworn games recently? It's just I've been busy. I would like to do more. I've just been very busy. That's the thing. Like again, I work a full-time job. I also have grad school, and it's tough to balance it, especially because we're nearing the end of a term, which means I have more work than I normally do, because end of term papers and things like that are coming up. So yeah, I haven't had time. This upcoming week, I probably still will not have much time, but the next week I should have more time. So hopefully I'll be able to get some games then. But yeah, I feel bad. I want to get out more videos, but it's just like, it's tricky. Like, because it takes time to get the games, and then it takes time to record the commentary. And like, I just haven't had the time to do that, unfortunately. So I will get them out eventually, though. Don't worry, they will come. It will be a bit. So yeah. That's my top priority for a video, though. So the next video that I make will be a Lightsworn video. And there will be a couple more videos in it. I still need to cover zombies. I need to cover Lightsworn itself. And I might cover more as well. Like, I think plants could be neat with triple charge. So that's something that I want to cover. But beyond that, I'm open to either going directly to Frog or not to Frog, but going to my Edison collabs and then Frog, or just covering other decks people are interested in. But yeah, again, Lightsworn's sort of like Edison, it's very similar to Edison, so I'm not sure how much I'll do for that. We should be finishing 2010 by the end of the year, I believe. Because I should be finishing Lightsworn either by the end of this month or by like the halfway point in October. And then Edison won't take that long either. And then Frog will not take long at all. So we should be done with 2010 by the end of the year. I don't see why we wouldn't unless things happen. Like, I can't think of what would happen to prevent that from happening, but like, we should be done with 2010 by the end of the year. And there should be more videos coming out, not this upcoming week, but the week after. So it will take some time. I apologize for the delays. I will make sure every week to do the streams, though. That is going to be the constant. Because I can definitely carve out time for a stream normally. This stream took longer than anticipated. But, I'm not upset about that because having more games is more fun. So, Star Trek 4 could take long. That's fair. Is that 2010, though? I thought that was 2011. Let me double check. Star Strike format. Oh, it is 2010. It's the end of 2010. Yeah, that could take a bit. Yeah, so actually we might not be done. Okay, I thought that Star Trek wasn't in 2010. So yeah, that might take long. But we'll be starting on Star Trek by the end of the year. And so we'll either finish up 2010 in December or we'll be finishing it up like in January of 2026. But yeah, I did not realize that Star Trek was 2010. I apologize. Yeah. I will say Star Trek, though, it seems like the best thing to be doing is just Gravekeepers. So it might just be an entirely Gravekeeper format. But I will be experimenting with other decks as well, because I do think that there could be other things that can work. It's just you need to prepare for Gravekeepers. Like, you need to have Closed Forest, for instance. You need to have things that can counteract them. But yeah. So, apologies for that misunderstanding there. Or not even misunderstanding, just a lack of knowledge on my part. Simbira is good at outing the Wanghu here. Oh, they lost a fair amount of good ones, although a fair amount of those were painful choices as well. Yeah, and Friend just has a bunch of monsters in grave, so they get the chaos set up there if they need it. Are they going to attack in to the Wanghu? I feel like I might, honestly, if I was run from red. But leaving it as just a wall is fine too, probably. It's just Tsukiyomi is... Well, actually, Tsukiyomi... You send Tsukiyomi into Wanghu, you're losing the Suk. So, like, it's not necessarily the best thing to do. Yeah, this is probably fine. Now, I'm curious who will break the sort of, stalemate here first. Do I think I'm getting to Arc V by 2028? I think I should be able to get there. I think Zexal will take a year to a year and a half. And I'll probably be starting Zexal, like, in the first half of 2026. And so I think I should be at Arc V by 2028. We will have to see. I also will be done with grad school, like early next year. So the fact that I'll be done with grad school will then give me more time to make more videos. And so we should get at a faster pace than we're going currently. And so that will also allow me to get to Arc V sooner than normal. Zexal does look very interesting. I think Zexal, when I say that it will take like probably a year to a year and a half to cover, that's not because I'm trying to shortchange it. It's because I think that it'll just take that amount of time naturally. But yeah, I plan on actually like diving into Zexal like pretty deep because one, Zexal is a time where I wasn't actively playing the game. I was sort of like, adjacent to it, but not active. And so there were a lot of things that I thought were cool, but I could never really like play as competitively. And I'd like to try those out, here. Will it be as fast as DM? It will probably be, I think DM was, I don't know if DM or GX was my slowest period to cover, but I would imagine it's comparable to, I think it's more comparable to maybe GX, just because when I initially started DM, I went super in-depth about like every single little thing, which I really should not have done. And so DM was like artificially slow by my standards. Like if I covered DM now, it would be faster than I did it back then. So I could imagine it being more like GX in terms of time period, where I go into it in a fair amount of detail, but I'm also not like covering things that don't need to be covered, right? So yeah, I would imagine like GX level. But the thing is that Zexal also has more formats to cover. So that could bring it up to the DM level. So I don't know. I think it might be somewhere in between. But I do look forward to Zexal a lot, and I will be giving it a lot more sort of look than 5Ds. Because yeah, 5Ds is just like 5Ds is sort of just a period of like a very high and like a bunch of lows. I guess Tengu is also in 5. No, Tengu's in Zexal because it does have XZs. So, yeah, does it have the most or does it have the most played? Because I know that Arc V also has a fair bit. But yeah, I will be covering a lot with Zexal. Zexal I think will be very fun. Actually, I can just go to format libraries, Discord, and count. Let's see. So Clown is being spotlighted, and that is an Arc V format. Tengu, Wind Up, and Hat are all Zexal formats, and those are there. So they'll add 3 to the Zexal count that I do. So Zexal on format library has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 formats. Arc V has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 formats. So, DM has the most on format library. I mean, that also kind of makes sense for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Actually, I think, 12. Yeah, so, yeah, DM and Arc V, I think, are tied with the formats on format library, at least. Now, that being said, if there are formats that are not covered on format library, we will cover them if I think that they deserve to be covered. That is always an option. That's what we did with the DM era, where we sort of just covered Treasure, Imperial, and some others that were not on format library, because, they had ban lists for them. So we were like, every format with a ban list should have a format to it, or every ban list should have a format to it. So we sort of went with that. And So yeah, so ArcV could grow to have more formats. Zexal could grow to have more formats, but yeah, either way, we'll be diving into them, and it should be a fair bit of fun. It should be a bit longer. I should be doing it at a time where I actually have more time to make videos, and so I will be making more videos for them. So it should be a bit better. Right now, it's just kind of an awkward period for the channel because of just my personal life and like the sort of busyness that I have in my life right now, which is unfortunate. But at the same time, I think I needed to do the grad school program that I'm doing just like for my not for my sanity. If that's phrased a bit badly, but like for what I want to be doing in life, I think I needed to do the grad school program that I'm doing. So even if it short term affects the channel, and yeah, long term it will still be fine. The channel will still be here. I'll still be making videos. No matter what pace we go at, I will be, trying to at least fulfill the goal that I set out with and covering as much as I can. And at the very least, if the channel ever lags behind to an extreme amount, we'll still be having tournaments on the YGO from Zero Discord server. We'll be still having the weekly locals that we normally do. So there will still be Yu-Gi-Oh! Stuff coming from us. It will just be, the pace will be variable potentially. But yeah, we shall see. Very interesting board. Wagamuffin is in a very good spot here. They've got 5 cards basically to run for Reds 2. Yeah, I would imagine Lynx by 2030 if we get to ArcV in 2028. So yes, kind of wild laying it out and just saying, oh yeah, that will actually be a whole new decade by the time we get there. But yeah, yeah, we will be getting there in 2030. Yeah, wild to think about, but I'm looking forward to it. And then we'll have like 10 or more years of like modern Yu-Gi-Oh to cover after that too, so that'll be fun. I don't know when I'll catch up to the present day, but no matter what happens, I'll keep going, keep trying to get formats under my belt, formats covered, formats played, and see which ones are the hidden gems, see which ones can use more love, and even see the ones that maybe you shouldn't get more love, but maybe are tailored to a specific type of person and a specific type of gameplay. So it's always been the goal of the channel, and I intend to keep it being the goal of the channel from here on. So yeah, Decree is actually pretty good for Wagamuffin here because they can just keep hitting in like every turn and have a good chance of actually getting a chance to chip away a run for Red's life points. I feel like that set is not Cyberjar. I don't think Wagamuffin would commit that to board. Yeah, I could imagine 2035 being there. Yeah, I could see that being a good date squish, but it also depends on like how much Yu-Gi-Oh formats come out between now and then, right? Like depending on Konami's like product release schedule, it could be sooner or later. Yeah, Vrain will go by. Well, I will be covering other Vrain formats, but I probably will be covering the FTK formats a bit less intensely. So yeah, Vrains will probably go by relatively quickly. But yeah, Zamar hitting into a Reaper. And then it looks like passing back. Very interesting game state here. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Vrains, though. I think Lynx are a neat sort of mechanic. I feel like they're overhated. I understand why they're hated. Because there's something that like pretty much any deck can do. But I think that they do introduce interesting mechanics. And yeah, 8 months for Vrains. I could see 8 months. I see 8 months for Vrains. I could definitely see that. Interesting that they went for Snatch there instead of popping the pre-mat. Okay, I guess they can just pop the pre-mat after this. Oh, and I guess this does get over all the scapegoat tokens. So that explains it. Yep, that explains it. Yeah, if they didn't need to worry about Call of the Haunted, so yeah. And then main 2 probably pop the pre-mat or just pop the set and just be like, well, I'm threatening like lethal next turn. I don't know. What would you do in this situation if you're watching out there? Would you pop the pre-mat? Would you pop the set? Pop in Decree. Okay. Must mean they got some good traps back there. I'll be getting some more water after the stream ends, but we're so close to the end of this game that I want to hold on there. Am I going to cover Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! As it comes out in the future? Probably, yeah. If we reach that point. It will largely just depend. That'll be a choice I probably make in the moment. But like, I don't see why I wouldn't. It would make sense to me, because if I cover all the formats up to that point, yeah, I guess I could take a hiatus for 10 years and then come back when there are 10 years for retro formats, then to cover again. But I think it just makes sense for me to cover the modern stuff too, at that point in the game. So we'll see. I mean, a lot of this is done, like, I have some of it planned out, right? So for instance, like, I've known since I covered GOAT, right, that I would be doing the thing with Edison where I'd collab with other people or attempt to collab with other people for that. And so, like, I've had other ideas here with this sort of thing, but a lot of it is up in the air. A lot of it's like, I could see myself going one way, I could see myself going another. It really does just depend on where I'm at that time, where the community's at that time, you know, where the channel's at that time as well. So it just depends on a lot of different factors, you know. But I'm always open to trying new things. Would I recover formats if there are significant meta shifts in formats? Yeah, I would. Actually, before the channel got like really slowed down because of my personal stuff, we actually did occasionally go back and be like, hey, look, you know, this is also, oh, that explains why they got rid of the Decree, because you can ring the Zambira, and if the Reaper had actually benched Connect, then that would be lethal. But, yeah, before I had to slow down a lot, I actually was doing that a bit, where I'd be like, oh, this actually topped in an event, so let's actually go back and cover it. I did that with Perfect Circle relatively recently as well. But yeah, it's something that I've liked to do in the past, and it's something that I'd like to do more of. It's just now I'm so far behind that I don't really feel like I can right now. But once I get into a better spot, it's something I could definitely do. Did they normal summon this turn? I don't think they did. Could run the Reaper already on field, and Breaker was the previous turn, right? Breaker was definitely previous turn, because Breaker popped Decree, and also Breaker contributed to hitting over the Scapegoats. So yeah, Breaker was previous turn. But yeah, Prior, so a combination of prior and previous. But yeah, it's something that I still like to do occasionally, just I have not had time. When I get back to having more time and releasing more videos, it's probably something I'll do a lot more. Especially because there are a fair amount of formats that have had significant meta shifts. Like Per Circle, we've mentioned on the streams in the past. But yeah, at this pace, we will have 15 more years of Yu-Gi-Oh! By 2040. Yeah, that's true. So that's a lot more to cover there. But it'll be fun covering it. I like this game a lot. I like seeing it evolve over time. Maybe that will change when I actually play the modern formats in a lot more detail and depth. But I don't really see it changing. I just think it's neat seeing how this game's evolved. And yeah, I'm looking forward to covering it. I'm looking forward to having fun. Even if the game ends, which is a possibility, where like the game could just end eventually, right? But like before I finish covering it all, I'll probably still cover the retro stuff, you know. And maybe when we reach that point, maybe I'll just continue covering retro formats beyond that. But yeah, I mean, I just love the game. Hopefully there's still a community if the game ever does end like that. Konami could go bankrupt, exactly. Or they're just like, you know what, Yu-Gi-Oh! Isn't profitable for us as much as it used to be, so we're just going to cut it short. Or they're just going to do like, hey, we're just going to do a complete set rotation and, you know, end it all here. I don't know. There's a lot of things they could do. But I feel like if that happens, we'll have to see how we react. But either way, it'll be fun. So, yeah, I mean, it could be possible. Like, I'm not going to say never to anything. And I think that it's very much not even like in the possibility of like never or will or whatever. It's probably going to happen at some point, right? Everything comes to an end. Like, that is a fact of life, right? And why am I losing here? That's wild. I was actually thinking that they were going to win. I think they probably should have held the ring, honestly, once the Reaper didn't go through. They're in a bit too perilous of a spot, but yeah, it's a bit tricky. A bit tricky here, indeed. Yeah, or they should have popped the pre-mat. to just keep the decree up to shut off influence traps. There's a couple things they could have done, but yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm fine covering Pokemon. I'm fine covering Star Wars, MTG, etc. So yeah, it's something that we'll have to play by ear, see how it goes, and go from there. But that's the great thing about the channel and the community, is that we are flexible and we will do what seems best in the moment, if I can. And yeah, I don't plan to going away. Yeah, I don't know. It's not like I'm in this for the money, because if I was in it for the money, I would not be covering like retro Yu-Gi-Oh in the way that I'm covering, right? So I'm in it for the passion, and the passion is still here. So I don't see the passion fading anytime soon. But yeah, so I hope y'all enjoy the journey. I hope y'all enjoyed today's locals, and peace to you as well, Squish. Peace to everyone out there, and I hope y'all have a great day. See you next time. Peace.